Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I would like to talk about one of the most influential companies in the world of artificial intelligence, OpenAI. Many people know OpenAI because of ChatGPT. Millions of people use it to ask questions, write essays, translate languages, generate ideas, and even create computer programs. But OpenAI is much more than the company behind a popular chatbot. It is one of the organizations leading the development of advanced artificial intelligence. OpenAI was founded in 2015 by a group of technology leaders and researchers, including Sam Altman, Elon Musk, Greg Brockman, Ilya Sutskever, John Schulman, and Wojciech Zaremba. Their original goal was ambitious. They wanted to develop artificial general intelligence, often called AGI, in a way that would benefit all of humanity. Artificial general intelligence refers to AI that can perform many different intellectual tasks at a level similar to, or even beyond, that of humans. Although today's AR systems are impressive, they are still considered narrow AI because they are designed for specific kinds of tasks. OpenAI believes that future AI systems could become much more capable. One of the company's biggest achievements has been the development of large language models. These AI systems learn by analyzing enormous amounts of text from books, articles, websites, and many other sources. Instead of memorizing answers, they learn patterns in language. As a result, they can generate human-like responses, summarize information, write stories, explain difficult concepts, and answer questions on many different topics. In 2022, OpenAI released ChatGPT to the public. The response was extraordinary. Within just a few months, millions of people around the world were using it for education, business, programming, writing, research, and everyday conversations. For many people, ChatGPT became their first experience using advanced artificial intelligence. Since then, OpenAI has continued improving its models. Modern AI systems can now understand images, analyze documents, generate computer code, assist with scientific research, and communicate in multiple languages. These abilities continue to improve as the technology develops. However, OpenAI also recognizes that powerful AI creates new challenges. One important issue is safety. As AI becomes more capable, researchers must ensure that these systems behave responsibly and avoid producing harmful or misleading information. Another challenge is fairness. AI systems learn from large amounts of data, and that data may contain mistakes or biases. Researchers work to reduce these problems, but they cannot eliminate them completely. There are also questions about jobs. Some people worry that AI could replace certain kinds of work, especially tasks involving writing, customer service, programming, or data analysis. At the same time, AI may create entirely new industries and professions, just as previous technological revolutions created new opportunities. Privacy is another important topic. As AI becomes more integrated into everyday life, companies and governments must think carefully about how personal information is collected, stored, and protected. Finally, there is the question of responsibility. If an AI system makes an important recommendation or produces incorrect information, who should be responsible? The user, the developer, the company? These questions are becoming increasingly important as AI becomes part of our daily lives. So, what can we learn from OpenAI? OpenAI shows us that artificial intelligence is no longer a technology of the future. It is already changing education, healthcare, business, science, and many other fields. At the same time, AI is not simply a technological challenge. It is also a social, economic, and ethical challenge. How we choose to develop and use AI may shape the future of our society for many years to come. In conclusion, OpenAI has become one of the most important organizations in the AI revolution. Its work demonstrates both the incredible possibilities and the serious responsibilities that come with building intelligent machines. Understanding OpenAI helps us better understand not only artificial intelligence, but also the future of humanity itself. Thank you.
All right, listeners, welcome back. We've traveled through more than a century of economic evolution. Taylor organized work. Ford transformed production. Toyota taught continuous improvement. Amazon reinvented logistics. Google organized information. Apple reshaped the relationship between humans and technology. NVIDIA built the computing engine that powers modern artificial intelligence. Now we arrive at the next chapter. Today's conversation isn't about organizing work, information, or computation. It's about something even more fundamental: intelligence itself. Today, we're talking about OpenAI. Let's rewind the track. For decades, computers were incredibly fast calculators. They could process numbers, store files, and follow instructions with remarkable precision. But there was one thing they couldn't really do. They couldn't understand language the way humans do. They couldn't hold natural conversations. They couldn't explain complicated ideas or write stories that sounded genuinely human. That challenge fascinated researchers for generations. What if computers could learn patterns in language instead of simply following programmed rules? What if intelligence could emerge from learning rather than from manually written instructions? That question eventually led to large language models. Instead of programming every possible answer, researchers trained AI on enormous collections of books, articles, websites, scientific papers, and conversations. The goal wasn't to memorize the internet. It was to learn how language works, how words relate to one another, how ideas connect, how reasoning develops across sentences and paragraphs. Think about how children learn language. No one hands them a complete grammar textbook on the first day. They listen, they observe, they notice patterns. Gradually, they begin speaking. Large language models learn differently from humans, but they also discover patterns through enormous amounts of experience. OpenAI became one of the leading organizations pushing this idea forward. Founded in 2015, the organization set an ambitious mission. Its long-term goal was to develop artificial general intelligence, AGI, in ways that would benefit humanity as a whole. That mission attracted researchers from around the world. Years of research eventually produced GPT models that surprised even many experts. Then came ChatGPT. For millions of people, this was the first time artificial intelligence felt less like science fiction and more like an everyday tool. Students asked for explanations, programmers debugged software, writers brainstormed ideas, businesses drafted reports, teachers prepared lessons, scientists summarized research. People didn't need to understand machine learning to use it. They simply started talking. The interface was conversation itself. Artificial intelligence suddenly became accessible. But here's where the rhythm changes. OpenAI isn't simply building a chatbot. It's building a new way for humans to interact with knowledge. Instead of searching through dozens of websites, people increasingly ask questions directly. Instead of reading hundreds of pages before getting started, they ask for summaries. Instead of facing a blank page, they ask for ideas. The interaction shifts from searching for information to collaborating with intelligence. That represents a profound change. Throughout history, every major technological revolution changed the relationship between humans and tools. The printing press expanded access to knowledge. The internet expanded access to information. Artificial intelligence may expand access to reasoning itself. Of course, every revolution brings difficult questions. Can AI make mistakes? Absolutely. Can it generate convincing but incorrect information? Yes. Can people become too dependent on AI? Possibly. Like every powerful technology before it, artificial intelligence amplifies both opportunities and risks. Another important question concerns work. AI is beginning to assist with writing, programming, research, customer support, design, translation, and countless other knowledge-based tasks. Some jobs will undoubtedly change. Some may disappear. Others may evolve in entirely unexpected directions. History suggests that technology rarely eliminates work completely. Instead, it transforms the kinds of work humans perform. The challenge is adapting quickly enough. Then there's responsibility. If an AI system recommends a medical treatment, writes financial advice, or helps make legal decisions, who is accountable when something goes wrong? The developer, the company, the user, or society that chooses to rely on such systems? These questions become more important as AI becomes more capable. Now let's zoom out. OpenAI represents something larger than a single company. It symbolizes humanity's attempt to build machines that participate in intellectual work. Not simply calculating, not simply storing information, but reasoning, explaining, creating, collaborating. That's a remarkable step in the history of technology, and we're still at the beginning. Future AI systems may become better teachers, better researchers, better assistants, better scientific collaborators. Perhaps they'll help solve diseases, accelerate clean energy research, and unlock discoveries we cannot yet imagine. But every increase in intelligence also increases responsibility. The future won't be determined by AI alone. It will depend on the choices humans make about how intelligence is developed, shared, regulated, and used. So here's today's takeaway. Taylor organized labor, Ford organized production, Google organized information, NVIDIA-powered computation. OpenAI is reorganizing how humans interact with intelligence itself. And OpenAI is helping organize intelligence itself. That's not just another business story. It may be one of the biggest transformations in human history. The age of artificial intelligence isn't simply about smarter machines. It's about redefining how humans think, learn, create, and solve problems together. That's the rhythm of the AI revolution. Stay curious, stay responsible, and I'll catch you on the next track.
Ladies and gentlemen, today I invite you to consider what may prove to be one of the most consequential developments in the history of human civilization, the creation of machines capable of participating in intellectual work. For centuries, technological progress has largely extended human physical abilities. The wheel multiplied our capacity to move. The steam engine multiplied our capacity to produce. Electricity multiplied our capacity to power industry. The computer multiplied our capacity to calculate. The internet multiplied our capacity to communicate. Artificial intelligence introduces a different possibility. It seeks not merely to extend what human beings can do with their bodies. It seeks to extend what human beings can do with their minds. Among the organizations pursuing this ambition, none has attracted more global attention than OpenAI. Many people know OpenAI because of ChatGPT. Students use it to explain difficult concepts. Programmers ask it to write code. Scientists summarize research. Businesses draft reports. Writers generate ideas. Millions now interact with artificial intelligence almost as naturally as they once searched the internet. Yet ChatGPT is only one expression of a much larger project. To understand that project, we must first ask a deeper philosophical question. What is intelligence? This question has occupied philosophers for centuries. Some have argued that intelligence is the ability to reason logically. Others emphasize creativity. Still others point to language, imagination, or practical judgment. Psychologists have proposed multiple forms of intelligence. Neuroscientists examine the physical structure of the brain. Artificial intelligence researchers approach the question differently. Rather than asking what intelligence is in the abstract, they ask whether intelligent behavior can emerge from learning patterns in information. This shift is historically significant. Traditional software followed explicit instructions. Every rule had to be written by a programmer. Every possible situation required careful anticipation. Large language models operate differently. Instead of programming every answer, researchers expose the system to enormous quantities of language. Books, scientific papers, websites, conversations, historical documents, technical manuals. The system gradually discovers statistical relationships among words, sentences, concepts, and patterns of reasoning. It does not memorize every sentence. Rather, it develops an internal representation of how language functions. This distinction deserves careful attention. The goal is not to store knowledge like a library. The goal is to develop a system capable of generating new responses by understanding patterns. This resembles an important feature of human learning. Children rarely memorize dictionaries. Instead, they gradually discover relationships among words through experience. Although artificial intelligence learns through mathematics rather than biology, both involve recognizing patterns from vast amounts of information. This observation raises an intriguing possibility. Perhaps intelligence itself depends less upon following rules than upon learning relationships. If so, intelligence may not be a fixed property possessed exclusively by biological organisms. It may instead represent a capacity that emerges under certain conditions. Such a possibility would have seemed extraordinary only a generation ago. OpenAI emerged within precisely this intellectual landscape. Founded in 2015, the organization announced an ambitious mission to ensure that artificial general intelligence, AGI, benefits all of humanity. The phrase deserves careful consideration. Artificial general intelligence differs from today's specialized AI systems. Most current AI models perform particular categories of tasks. They generate language, recognize images, predict proteins, recommend products, translate text. Each excels within relatively specific domains. AGI represents something different. It refers to an artificial system capable of learning, adapting, reasoning, and solving a wide variety of intellectual problems across many domains. In other words, AGI would resemble human intelligence not because it copies human biology, but because it demonstrates similar flexibility. Whether such systems will ultimately exist remains uncertain. Reasonable experts disagree. Some predict rapid progress. Others expect substantial obstacles. Still others question whether intelligence itself can ever be fully replicated through computation. These disagreements remind us of an important philosophical lesson. Technological futures are never inevitable. They remain shaped by human choices. Nevertheless, recent developments have changed the public conversation dramatically. When ChatGPT became widely available, millions of people experienced something unexpected. Artificial intelligence no longer appeared as a distant scientific project. It became conversational, accessible, practical. For many people, this represented the first time they experienced technology that appeared capable of participating in intellectual dialogue. This experience altered public perception. For decades, computers were viewed primarily as machines that processed numbers. Suddenly, they appeared capable of discussing philosophy, explaining economics, writing poetry, composing software, and assisting scientific research. Whether these systems genuinely understand or merely simulate understanding remains an open philosophical debate. Yet socially, the distinction may become increasingly difficult to observe. If people regularly collaborate with artificial intelligence while studying, working, creating, and solving problems, the practical consequences may become profound regardless of how philosophers ultimately define intelligence. Here we encounter another important question. Throughout history, societies have repeatedly democratized access to powerful intellectual tools. Writing extended memory. Printing expanded literacy. Universities institutionalized knowledge. The Internet expanded access to information. Artificial intelligence may represent the next stage in that historical process. Instead of merely providing access to information, it may increasingly provide access to reasoning itself. This possibility carries extraordinary promise. Students lacking access to excellent teachers may receive personalized explanations. Researchers may accelerate scientific discovery. Doctors may analyze complex medical evidence more effectively. Small businesses may obtain expertise previously available only to large corporations. Knowledge itself may become more widely distributed. Yet history also teaches us that every expansion of power creates new responsibilities. The printing press spread knowledge. It also spread propaganda. The Internet connected humanity. It also amplified misinformation. Artificial intelligence will almost certainly produce similar tensions. The question before us is therefore not simply whether increasingly intelligent machines can be built. The deeper question is what kind of society emerges when intelligence itself becomes widely available through technology. If artificial intelligence increasingly participates in intellectual work, another question naturally follows. Who should have access to intelligence? Throughout history, societies have struggled to determine how valuable resources ought to be distributed. Land, capital, education, healthcare, information. Each has generated debates not only about efficiency but also about justice. Artificial intelligence may now require us to revisit those same questions from a new perspective. For much of human history, access to expertise depended largely upon geography and wealth. A student born in a great city might learn from exceptional teachers. A child born in a remote village might never encounter the same opportunities. Businesses with substantial financial resources could hire teams of lawyers, economists, engineers, and consultants. Small organizations often relied upon far more limited expertise. Intellectual opportunity has never been distributed equally. Artificial intelligence appears to challenge that pattern. A student with an internet connection may now ask questions at any hour. A small entrepreneur may receive assistance once available only to multinational corporations. A physician in a rural community may consult sophisticated analytical tools. A scientist may accelerate research by collaborating with intelligent systems. At first glance, artificial intelligence appears to democratize expertise itself. Yet appearances deserve careful examination. Access to artificial intelligence is not identical to ownership of artificial intelligence. Millions may use intelligent systems. Far fewer participate in designing them. Fewer still possess the computational infrastructure required to develop them. This distinction reminds us of earlier technological revolutions. Many people use electricity. Few own power plants. Many people use the internet. Few operate global communication networks. Artificial intelligence may follow a similar pattern. Its benefits become widely distributed while its underlying infrastructure remains highly concentrated. This observation introduces a difficult ethical question. Can knowledge truly become democratic if the intelligence generating that knowledge remains dependent upon a small number of institutions? Some argue that this concentration simply reflects economic necessity. Developing frontier artificial intelligence requires extraordinary investment, highly specialized talent, and enormous computational resources. Others worry that excessive concentration risks granting unprecedented influence to organizations whose decisions shape education, communication, scientific research, and even public discourse. Both concerns deserve serious consideration. Efficiency matters. Innovation matters. But so do accountability and legitimacy. Throughout democratic history, societies have generally resisted allowing essential public institutions to operate entirely beyond public scrutiny. Courts remain accountable. Universities remain subject to public evaluation. Governments remain answerable to citizens. Should systems increasingly participating in intellectual life be treated differently? Another challenge concerns education. For centuries, education has aimed not merely to transfer information but to cultivate judgment. Students learn facts. More importantly, they learn how to evaluate arguments, question assumptions, compare evidence, and reach independent conclusions. Artificial intelligence changes the educational landscape profoundly. A student can now request explanations, summaries, examples, essays, programming assistance, or mathematical solutions within seconds. This creates extraordinary opportunities. Learning may become more personalized than ever before. Yet another possibility deserves equal attention. If artificial intelligence increasingly performs the intellectual work previously required of students, what becomes of the educational process itself? Education has never been solely about obtaining correct answers. It has also been about becoming the kind of person capable of asking meaningful questions. Perhaps the greatest danger is not that students will use artificial intelligence. It is that they may gradually surrender the habits of curiosity, patience, reflection, and intellectual independence that genuine learning requires. Technology should strengthen judgment. It should not quietly replace it. Responsibility presents another profound challenge. Suppose an artificial intelligence system assists with diagnosing disease. Suppose it recommends financial investments. Suppose it advises governments during public emergencies. When outcomes prove harmful, responsibility becomes remarkably difficult to assign. Engineers design the system. Researchers train the models. Organizations deploy them. Users rely upon them. Responsibility becomes distributed across complex networks rather than resting upon identifiable individuals. Our traditional moral vocabulary developed within a world where human beings remain the principal decision makers. Artificial intelligence challenges those assumptions. We therefore face not merely technological innovation but conceptual innovation. We must reconsider how responsibility itself should function within increasingly intelligent societies. Perhaps the deepest question concerns the nature of intelligence itself. For centuries, intelligence has often been understood as one of humanity's defining characteristics. It distinguished human beings from other animals. It justified educational institutions. It shaped political leadership. It organized professional life. Now artificial intelligence invites us to reconsider that assumption. If machines increasingly participate in reasoning, explanation, creativity, and discovery, what remains uniquely human? Some respond by emphasizing emotion. Others point toward morality. Still others argue that wisdom differs fundamentally from intelligence. Knowledge answers questions. Wisdom asks which questions deserve asking. Information identifies possibilities. Judgment chooses among them. Artificial intelligence may become extraordinarily intelligent. Whether it can become genuinely wise remains an open question. Wisdom requires more than calculation. It requires experience, character, empathy, humility, the ability to recognize not only what can be done but what ought to be done. Those capacities emerge within moral communities rather than computational systems. This distinction may become increasingly important. The future may not belong to those who possess the most information, nor even to those who possess the most powerful artificial intelligence. It may belong to societies capable of combining technological intelligence with human wisdom. OpenAI therefore represents far more than a research organization. It symbolizes humanity's attempt to expand the boundaries of intelligence itself. Whether that expansion ultimately serves freedom or domination, equality or inequality, democracy or concentrated power, depends not upon algorithms alone. It depends upon the moral and political choices societies make concerning their development. The central question, then, is not whether artificial intelligence will become more intelligent. That future is already unfolding before us. The deeper question is whether human beings will become wiser as intelligence itself becomes increasingly abundant. For intelligence without wisdom may amplify every mistake. Power without responsibility may magnify every injustice. But intelligence guided by wisdom has the potential to become one of humanity's greatest achievements. In the end, the measure of artificial intelligence will not be found in benchmark scores, computational speed, or the number of tasks it can perform. It will be found in a far older standard. ***, does it help human beings live better lives together? ***, that question cannot be answered by engineers alone. Nor by economists. Nor by philosophers. It must be answered by citizens willing to deliberate, to question, and to imagine the kind of society they hope to build. For technology may reshape civilization. But only human judgment can determine what civilization ought to become.